Obviously, it matters a great deal if you don't take God literally and he actually exists. So, what's it to be? We have to make up our minds, don't we, about whether he exists. And then, once we decide on that, we will know whether to take God literally or not. What do I mean by taking God literally? It means obeying his laws, and and his first two laws, if you're going by the Bible and the Noahide laws, is the prohibition against idolatry and blasphemy. And hypocrisy is not taking it literally because you don't really believe. So if you don't really believe, or you're not sure, or if you're really atheist but you want to go along to get along, you would still want to the impression of outward obedience and compliance because you don't want your herd to get the impression that you don't really believe and you're some kind of subversive or heretic. So I think a lot of people will just see what the others do in order to fit in and take it literally if others take it literally, or at least appear to take it literally if most people take it literally, and not take it literally if most people appear not to be taking it literally. And most people don't really think about it until perhaps towards the end when they wonder with more depth than usually whether God really exists because they're about to pop their clogs. And yes, there are people who can never make up their mind, and I have told you before of the people I know who have told me three different states of their beliefs, i.e., belief, disbelief, and doubt. So I'm guessing most people don't. They're not really sure. And I myself have said I am agnostic. And so I would be going by the minimum level of compliance in that I would agree that a set of laws ought to exist because they are the absolute minimum of laws that is required. For people to claim that they are at least observing the minimum standards of universal morality. And so today I've been, Joseph and I exchanged a few comments. I don't think I can respond anymore because Neil sort of allows me to comment and then stops me from making any further comments. And I must say, I didn't really absorb what the two were saying. But it was nothing to do with theology. Jung is a subject that always pops up with Neil, but he never asked Jews about idolatry. And it's interesting how people are, they don't want to argue about it because it just seems too much to take things literally. But there is a whole lot of difference, isn't there, if you don't take it literally? So I've been trying to explain to Olson that the difference between idolaters and non-idolaters is these idolaters make up the rules as they go along and they don't take the laws of God seriously, even though they claim to be in receipt of it as Jews or Muslims. They don't really take it literally. They're not really interested in wondering what those words really mean. They're just more into fitting in with a culture, with a group. So, what is the harm of that? So, with Jews, we know that they have had a history of being persecuted by Christians. They would be inquisitioned. And so that could excuse them a little for not quite wanting to take it seriously and saying, look, you're supposed to be obeying the no-hide laws if you want to get to heaven, if you do believe in the afterlife. And we're not sure if you do or not, because, on the one hand, you're always saying Jesus, 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 and you think Jesus is God, and you must know that Jews and Muslims don't agree with you, and therefore some sense of soul preservation might make you think, well, all is not quite right. There is a question mark about my religion, and there are three Abrahamic religions, and the other two don't quite agree with me. And they are sticklers about certain things because they've got a book of rules from God, and they tend to argue about it quite a lot, which is a way of showing that they're taking it seriously. Well, Christians, they only make a show of things, and they can't really take the laws of God seriously, because the Old Testament is for Jews, and it is in Hebrew, and therefore for for Jews. And what the Christians have in the New Testament is not divinely authored. There's no book of Jesus. There's the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Pauline epistles and things, but nothing actually by Jesus. You would have thought the Christians would be asking all kinds of questions, but they're designed not to be. They're created, their culture has indoctrinated them into not asking too many questions, because it could be a little dangerous, considering what happened to their ancestors, who they don't seem to much care about. I mean, if my ancestors were burnt at the stake for not affirming an absurdity because their king requires it, well, I would be so angry. I would be so angry. And they don't seem to care. I mean, I'm really outraged on their behalf. So I'm not ethnically European, but I feel a sense of outrage and anger at what their ancestors had to live through, of being forced to pretend to believe in something, and then for them to discover centuries later that it was all a lie. And I would become Republican, and because I would hate the institution of monarchy so much. And in any case, most people in the 21st century do not take monarchy seriously. But it is a principle of the thing. So now I've noticed that monarchs don't have much of a life at all. I would hate to be monarch, because it would mean nobody ever arguing with me about politics, and I not being able to argue with anyone about politics. And that would mean that the most important part of my mind would be deformed or very much underdeveloped. So we can imagine what, well, I can imagine anyway, what Jews are supposed to do if they really, really, really did believe in the afterlife. But then the Torah doesn't really mention an afterlife where good will be rewarded and evil punished. Only the Quran does. So what would I do if I were a Jew? I would I would be promoting Sharia so that the Gentiles would be better behaved, so that they would enjoy better government with less corrupt and incompetent government. And after enjoying good government, the Goyim would not be blaming everything on me. And that's how I would think if I would do it. But as it is, Gentiles do blame Jews for their bad government. And I'm saying, if Jews took the idea of an afterlife where good will be rewarded and evil punished, literally, then they would have no problem demanding to know. Well, they could be asking King Charles, couldn't they? Because ultimately he's the most well known. Well, he is a British monarch after all, and he is the most powerful, apparently, the most well known monarch in the whole wide world. And he does receive letters, and I'm sure I remember them saying on his website that Charles likes receiving letters. How do I write to King Charles? Maybe I should write to King Charles. But really, look, I've done so much already. I think it should be up to Jews and Muslims to write to King Charles, to His Majesty the King, Buckingham Palace, London, SW1A 1AA, United Kingdom. You can't send him emails. Protocol and addressing. Salutation. Begin the letter with Sir, or may it please your Majesty. Body. Refer to the monarch as Your Majesty in the third person, or the king rather than using you or your in the singular. Closing. UK citizens may use the traditional closing. I have the honour to remain, Sir, Your Majesty's most humble and obedient servant, while non-citizens can use yours sincerely or yours truly. Content. Keep the letter respectful and concise. Avoid political disputes or requests for personal intervention, as the king is a constitutional monarch. Uh-oh. So he can't, help you or give an opinion on anything controversial. But then we could still ask him how Christianity is not idolatry and how Jesus is God. Everybody can write to King Charles and ask him to explain. Well, you might even get a letter back, with a kind of standard response about the Trinity and stuff, right? And then, of course, we do not enter into correspondence on the matter. Expectations. Response. While the king reviews much of the correspondence, personal replies are rare. Most letters receive a form of acknowledgement signed by a member of the royal household staff. timing, allow several months for a response due to the high volume of mail. But what you could be doing, Americans, is ask him how. Well, he'll treat you more with more respect if you're American, and will probably not think much of. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know, but I'm sure he'll know to treat Americans with more respect because Britain is a vassal state of America. So you could ask, as a concerned Christian, concerned about the possibility of idolatry, and you'd say, well, you're a bit worried about your immortal soul, and and you wonder what the king, who is actually supposed to believe in the whole thing, because it's about the Trinity is supposed to defend the divine right of King Charles to rule. So, and he's the supreme governor of the Church of England. So he ought to know, right? What has King Charles said about Anglicanism? King Charles III identifies as a committed Anglican Christian and describes the Church of England as a church in which the faith is deeply rooted. He acknowledges his constitutional role as supreme governor of the church, having sworn at his coronation to uphold its settlement and preserve the Protestant Reformed religion established by law. Despite his personal commitment, Charles emphasizes a pluralistic approach to his role as monarch. He has stated that he is bound to respect those who follow other spiritual paths and secular ideals, viewing his duty as protecting the diversity of faiths in Britain rather than defending Anglicanism to the exclusion of others. This perspective aligns with his long-held view, dating back to 1994, that the sovereign should act as a protector of faith in general within a multicultural society. Well, I suppose he has to adopt that position since he's only a constitutional monarch. But I think writing to him, showing concern about the repose of his immortal soul, um, would be a good idea. I'm just giving you a general idea of how to approach the subject in a way that might make him prick up his ears. So, because really, he's the most important person with a religion whose very occupation, such as British monarch. Can you imagine? All those forms you have to fill in, and you have to say occupation, and there's Charles, and he has to fill it in, and he has to say monarch. No. He might say monarch, and supreme governor of the Church of England. But you see, this goes against the rule in that the Hasmonean dynasty broke about the king and priest not being the same person. So it's all a bit messed up, and nobody really wants to talk about it. And I mentioned Joseph because he doesn't really want to talk about it either, and he doesn't really want to offend anyone. And I know he's a nice guy, and I was saying, look, you people, you you should really just, um, you should really do. What did I say? Let me find it. He called me Karen when he responded to me. Should I be offended? Was he trying to, um, was he trying to say something, does he really think my name is Karen? Never mind. So I said at at the 59th minute, the only topics worth discussing with Jews. This is addressed to Neil. 1. Are you a righteous Jew? 2. Are righteous Jews observant Jews? 3. At the very least, shouldn't Gentiles claiming to be righteous be concerned about the definition of idolatry? 4. Isn't anthropomorphism idolatry? 5. Don't Christians worship a man? 6. Wasn't Jesus executed for blasphemy? 7. Are the overwhelming majority of people claiming to be Jews, Christians, and Muslims hypocrites indifferent to idolatry? 8. Are there more idolaters in the world than righteous Jews and Gentiles who would be Muslims? 9. Are Christians the worst kind of idolaters because they are the most powerful religious group in the world, with a global empire in the process of starting another world war? And what did Joseph say? He said, "Good morning, Karen. Been a while since we talked. I feel like I spent so much of my life talking about these 9 questions. I appreciate getting to talk about my other work as well, and not being reduced to only these 9. I don't remember him talking about these things." If you think that's the only contribution 15 million individuals can make to your world, I'm not sure what to say. You see, he's not taking it seriously. It's like, we're just ordinary people, we can be, rocket scientists and writers and musicians. We're just like you. It's like, no, you have a special purpose. You're supposed to go, idolatry, ick, ick, and go around saying about Christians, how can you be so ick? And they don't do that, do they? He continues, "You might call this my secular work, though I do hope I practice it righteously. It is certainly far from perfect. Am I being righteous or self righteous? I don't think so. All I'm doing is, all I am doing is taking it literally. I'm taking it, and everybody's saying, why are you taking it literally? We're all just pretending. You're silly for taking it literally." And I'm saying, well, are you saying you're all just hypocrites? And the answer seems to be yes. So I guess we're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust because everybody's a hypocrite, and they're going to hell. And I will let GCBA join, and but I have to be doing a few things. Um, Maybe you want to talk to the others and um, call your friends or something. Okay, I do actually have to go. I have to step away. So let me. Okay, you haven't joined yet. So what I'm saying is, if the Jews were just taking it literally and they thought they would be rewarded and they would be rewarded for the good that they do, and even if they were, inquisitioned and burned at the stake or whatever, God will reward them and punish the evil people who burnt them at the stake. And if most of them said, yeah, yeah, do your worst to us Christians, we know you can't stand us and we don't care, and you're just silly for worshipping one of us while hating us so much. and blaming us for everything, which suggests that you don't even worship God, because if you did worship God, you would blame everything on God and you would wonder why you are cursed and why he is punishing you. But because you can't even pretend or even hypothesize that God might exist, you just blame everyone. You blame blacks, you blame foreigners, you blame Jews, you blame Muslims, and that's all you ever do. And you're all hypocrites. Yes, you have evolved a kind of language where you know. Um, Hi, Tony Tiger Great. As far as I know, it's the stream is going. Did you want to join? Okay, I have to. I'll be back. It's still live, and I'm sort of waiting for GCBA to join. Okay, I will play some music, and then I'll come back. Well, there's nobody here. What was I saying? So the point I was making is that if people literally believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished. And it would only be logical to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished if God exists to do this. Then they would do the right thing because that's the only incentive, right? That would be the incentive to do the right thing. And and so that's why it's so important. I speak in terms of the examination that has two parts: the theory and the practice. The theory and the practice. And the theory is, well, the Ten Commandments, of seven no-hide laws, and the 36 capital offenses of the Torah if you're Jewish. And you're supposed to know what they are, and it's like the highway code. And there's a theory, right? And there's a practical. And that's it. You have to pass both. So, well, some people might have no problem at all passing the theory because, they're not stupid. They can remember things. They can follow instructions, or at least understand them. But following them is another thing, right? The practical. So there will be a theory and there will be a practical. And I'm saying Christians are in a bit of a, yeah, they are in trouble because they don't even get the theory. They don't get the theory. So at least, Jews and Muslims say, yeah, no idolatry, and yeah, we know we're not supposed to do that sort of thing. And the reason for no idolatry is that, well, we just have to be worshipping the same God. The one that said no idolatry. It's as simple as that. Jews and Gentiles, in order to get on better with each other, have to be worshipping the same God. Yes, I was aware that I think that they're doing Genesis, aren't they? Maybe I'll maybe I'll join them. But what I'm trying to say is that because people don't properly understand and they don't properly practice what they are supposed to understand, they've just wasted, centuries of their lives just repeating the same mistakes. And if God is also in charge of the reincarnation of Hindus and Buddhists, then this has implications for Christians too. So what happens is, well, we know Christians have been around for around 2,000 years. So what happens is that, and I've heard this position taken by a Cambridge professor who's very self-consciously Catholic and very self-consciously Islamophobic. And I did ask him, let's imagine that you die and you discover that God isn't Jesus. What religion are you going to choose for your parents in your next life? That was my question to him. And he said, Catholicism again, because that is my identity. So what does that say about him? It says that actually he's atheist and the deity he really worships, because he's obviously not afraid of hell, right? He's not afraid of eternal torment. And therefore he says he would rather go to hell than give up his Catholic identity, presumably because he's using his identity to show hatred of Muslims. He's saying he would rather go to hell more than once to show how much he hates Muslims. And so we have to. So it doesn't mean he really believes in the afterlife. I don't think so. I think what he's trying to do is show hatred of Muslims, and he doesn't even believe in God or the afterlife. Hello, GBCA.
Can you hear me? Is
Yes.
that clear? Um, what, can you not hear me or something?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was waiting for you to say
Oh
something.
no, I just said how you doing, but you know, like a lot of the times I'm just trolling you. Like I don't know why you think I'm an Islamophobe or anti-Semitic.
Do your feelings get hurt when I say that? Do you wish I wouldn't say that? I have to say that to say, well, if you're complaining about all these problems and refusing to accept the obvious solution, you must be an Islamophobe because it doesn't make sense, right?
No, I mean I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not that. So
Okay. So why aren't you a secular Quranist? And have you heard my reading of secular Quranism?
I'm pretty sure I heard that American Muslim lady read it, but I can't remember like really what it's about.
Well, I've read it recently myself.
Yeah, I've not heard your recent reading of it, but the reason I wouldn't adopt secular Quranism is because I mean I agree with a lot of the principles of it, but I mean I'm Christian and I think that we could make something better with the
You don't
church.
have to convert. You don't have to give up your
No, I
Christianity.
know, but I'll be honest, I can't actually remember like um, principles of secular Quranism, but I just know I don't agree with it. So maybe if you can jog my
Yeah,
memory, then
well, I mean, I suppose it would be really helpful if you said, under secular Quranism, can I do this? Can I do that? Blah blah blah, and then I can tell you, right? So I think a lot of people hate it because it's like, oh, but it's Islam, and even if it's not really, really, really Islam, it's kind of Islam, right? And we hate Islam, and so it doesn't really matter about oh, but Muslims are respectful towards Jesus and accept his prophethood, but they don't worship him. And I bet the Christians don't really worship Jesus anyway. They just say it because it's part of their shtick, you know.
well, we don't
And
think that the Jesus of the Quran is even real, like or existed. So
well, you have to deny everything that isn't Christian, right?
no, not
Because
necessarily,
basic. Okay,
because
so what do you?
Zoroastrianism, even the
Yes.
Zoroastrians will say that um what's it called? The three wise men which visited baby Jesus were Zoroastrian priests. So I
Okay. So what about
so I don't have to
what about it? The
I
Magi.
don't have to what the Islamic the Dajjal or something like that.
But that's neither here nor there, right? These are just
Well, no,
stories.
because I actually believe everything in the Bible, so it's not just a story. It's like it either happened or it didn't. So if you got conflating story, then it's false. Like it doesn't matter if like liberalism had some good ideas, but at the end of the day, like its overall paradigm is false. So like I don't mind including the nice bits, but we got to get away with the system. So Islam's just false. It's not. I'm not being mean or anything. It's just objectively false. So, but anyway, it.
How is it objectively
I
false?
mean, there's so many ways I can demonstrate that, but that's not what I call joined for. I really like. I can't be asked to talk about Islam. Um, so in your like ideal sort of republic or whatever, you are saying, "Oh, what can I not do? What can I do?" Just like, just give me something from your book that you want to implement apart from you already mentioned the concubinage system.
Well, I would have fun with the registry of religions and the register of religions and register of races.
You would have fun with it. What does that mean?
Yeah, yeah, because basically everybody's kind of, you know, you you will actually have to declare your belief system to the government. So obviously, if you're Catholic or Anglican or whatever, you you have to declare it. But you can just say, "Killer Quranist, I don't want any trouble," because that's obviously the political orthodoxy. I mean, and I can imagine myself doing that because I'm not really Christian, I'm not really Jewish, I'm not really Muslim. So I guess I'm happy to go along with the government for the moment because I
So
wouldn't
would
be able to say I'm Buddhist or Hindu because I don't think much of these religions. And then you might ask, well, I'm a communist, so what do I do? And then you can say, well, if you think that's your operating ideology, just declare yourself to be a communist.
so
But it would just be helpful if you just said, secular Quranism. But if you want to kind of show your rejection of it, but you haven't got a religion, and you want to say, oh, but I'm a liberal, I'm a whatever, then you
but
would have
can't
to
but
declare yourself.
can't someone just declare a religion and then get the benefits of it and then but not really believe in it? Or is there some way they have to like prove that they
Yeah, yeah, of
actually
course you
believe in it?
can. Yeah, yeah. So maybe you might say I'm Christian because mum and dad are Christian, and we're gonna what we want to identify as Christian, and I would say fine. But you just have to declare your religion, and then it means that you're going to be um, having to take it more seriously just by having to fill in a form. You know, and atheists might say, well, the whole thing is silly. Um, we want to be under secular political ideology. So it's
But
like,
what's the incentive if people can lie? Are you saying that, oh, when you apply, it's going to come up on on like your account, and then someone might be able to deny you employment because they don't want to hire, you know, someone who's not religious or someone who's from a different religion? Like, would you allow that? Like, what sort of like where would you go in terms of restricting these sort of things? Because I'm pretty sure I've heard you say that you think that um I think the Gender Relations Act, these type of things are thought thought crime. So like, why can I not refuse the hiring of someone because they're a woman or a different religion? Like, I should be able to do that. Maybe I'm
yes,
misquoting you, but
yeah, you should be able to do that.
yeah. So I mean, so that's quite liberal. Well, not liberal, but so yeah. I mean, that's quite interesting to me. So in that kind of niche aspect, like, what other laws would you have? Because I've not really heard many people speak on something like that.
You could just buy the book
No,
or,
I've
or
heard the
listen
book,
to it.
but
Or look up
no, no, no. I've heard the book,
secularquaranism.blogspot.com.
but I've never heard. I don't think in the book you talk about something like someone will be able to refuse employment upon any basis. Like, they can discriminate if they want to. And what's your reasoning for that? Like, why would you allow
Freedom
that?
of contract, which is a liberal principle.
Sorry,
Freedom of contract is a liberal principle.
freedom of contract.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's the idea that you can make contracts with people, only with people you want to make contracts with. You will have dealings with people you only want to have dealings with. It's your
But
right.
doesn't that undermine the whole point of being a country, where like you're just gonna not allow someone from your own country? You know, you can't be having this type of dynamic. So I'm saying, how are you going to justify that? Because if that's just a law outright, it's going to lead to separatism. Because if one group,
Isn't DEI discriminatory against men, against white men? It is already. It's already discriminatory.
um, I'm not arguing in favor of DEI though. I'm just saying, like, what is the basis for your law?
I'm just saying I'm allowing people to make their decisions. And if
But
it's a wrong decision, then it's their problem. You could have, a restaurant saying, I'm only going to hire, blue-eyed blonde people
mhm.
and only them and no one else. It's like, yeah, it's your restaurant.
No, but that's different though. Like you're saying, in any field, like of course, if I had like a YouTube channel or like a media platform, I might say I only want to hire people who share my idea because that's what I'm promoting. That makes sense. But if you, I don't know, like you can't have that as like a national sort of legislature. Like that can only be for certain situations, because then you're going to end up with sectarianism in your own country.
Well, I don't think it would be a problem because we're already so mixed up, and even in the olden days, you a Jew comes to your shop and asks for a job, you'd immediately think, well, are you going to turn up on Saturdays or not, right? Or you think, yeah, if he doesn't want to come on Saturdays, there'll be other people, or you just decide not to hire him or her. So you know, it's up to the employer, and I'm sure the Jew can go and find some other job. And I just want people to be able to make these decisions without being discriminated against. And actually, a lot of um, employers actually want to hire illegal immigrants because they're cheaper.
hmm But so I think it was I can't remember the guy's name. He's the reform Zia. I think it's Zia Yusuf or something.
Hmm.
He tweeted that like if you did something like that, um you'd be going to jail. Like the board of your company would be going to jail. So that's like the state intervening based on a moral issue. So how would you regulate something like that happening? Because
You, you
the
know,
state could
the
just say
problem
this
is
is
not.
this is against our interests.
Well, I think a rational employer would just want the best employee around,
No, but
right?
how are you going to prevent? Let's say if I was in your government and I'm like, this is suicidal and against our national interest. These people are traitors. How would you prevent me from enacting that sort of policy? Or how would your system prevent something like that from happening?
So it prevent what exactly?
So you're saying that you want this principle called freedom of contract, right? But I'm saying that Zia Yusuf today said that if reform get into power, let's say you're one of those people who, because it's cheaper, you wanted to hire an illegal immigrant. He's saying if you did that, you're going to jail. So I'm saying in your sort of republic where this would be allowed, what's stopping someone like Zia Yusuf getting into government and then enacting that sort of policy where it would just eliminate this whole freedom of contract thing you believe in?
Well, obviously there will be people who oppose my ideas, and they will try to, not do it. I'm just talking.
No, but I'm saying like, for example, in the constitution, in America, there's no way they can prevent freedom of speech, even though they have hate speech laws, like or the right to bear arms. Like these things they can't get around. So is there any way you make it, or are there any sort of like is there any laws you have which would be there's no way for it to be like there's no loopholes or there's no way for a new
There will
administration
always
to
be
come in.
loopholes. There will always be loopholes. So what you
This is
have
the
to do.
thing. So you're not even protecting the interpretation of the law. Like, have you not thought
No,
about
because
that?
I won't be alive forever. I can say this is how I would interpret it, right? And then one of these days I'll be no more. I can only say this is a way to do it, and hopefully enough people who want to do it my way will turn it into a legal tradition that they will uphold. And that's always been the way anyway. People will just sort of make free with the interpretation to suit their own political ends. It's inevitable. I mean, Nietzsche even said that interpretation is not a function of truth, but that of power.
Oh yeah, but not. Oh yeah, I mean, so you
Yeah,
don't care about
so
that.
all you no, I do care, but I'm saying nobody is well, nobody can stay around forever to do these things. They can only say this is how I would do it, and hopefully there will be enough people who say, "Oh yes, yes, that's a good idea. That would be fair," and then enforce that legal tradition or uphold that precedent. It doesn't matter whether it's me or anyone else. It's the same for any law in any country. And obviously, if you had a religion where people mostly, agree on certain things, you're more likely to have it than if you have a whole bunch of people who have, very divergent views and beliefs and practices. And that's the whole point of religion. You're trying to, and as we know from Christianity, even when everybody was white and Christian, they fought each other like cat and dog,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's already failed them.
because even if you're the same family, you're still gonna have fights and disagreements. I mean, it's just human behavior. It's not got anything to do with
Yes,
religion. But I mean, I just don't see how like, what is the point of your system if it's not meant to last?
it is meant to last, but I'm just telling you how it's supposed to work. Obviously, I can't even, promise you it's going to be the system that will be adopted, but I'm just telling you how it's supposed to run, where, if it were adopted. And then even then you'll say, oh, but I don't like the sound of it, blah, blah, blah. But all I can do is talk about it, explain how it works, why it's supposed to be like that, and who it's supposed to benefit.
Mhm. I just don't understand. Like, you're so convicted on the Quran's laws and stuff, but you just won't become Muslim.
It's important for me not to be Muslim because I'm basically saying you don't have to be Muslim to understand what I'm trying to do, which is the idea that if you're going to be following laws, right, you're going to be following laws that are fair enough and have had some kind of track record of being around. And I'm saying 1400 years is good enough. We can't use Christianity because Christians are always changing their laws. They can't make up their mind on anything. I mean, now the gay and feminist and LGBT, but before well, maybe 50 years ago, that there would be gay bashing and Christians would be thinking that that was a good thing. So you can't trust them because they don't take their own rules seriously. And in fact, any Christian who tried to do that, like John Calvin, would immediately be accused of being a Judaizer because that's what E. Michael Jones called Calvin, because E. Michael Jones doesn't like Protestants, so he blames them for everything.
No, no. The Protestant Reformation was a bad thing. Like, in hindsight, he is right on that. So, but he
It
won't look at what his church did to make that happen. But
okay. So now's the time that I talk about Leibniz, who wrote a book on theodicy, And his theory is basically that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Are you familiar with that?
No, but I am kind of familiar with that sort of theory that we live in the best possible world.
Yeah, because if God exists and he cares about us, he would make for us the best of all possible worlds. And if he did that, then it means everything that ever happened was meant to happen, and we have to live with it and extract the moral lessons from whatever bad stuff that happened. And yeah, and increase our understanding of the world around us and God's will through our understanding of theology and God's laws and history. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I just don't think even like back in the day, the majority of people didn't know that theology. They would just know like these are the rules you got to follow, and you know it's an historic religion. So, but I'm just trying to think of how this thing could be implemented. I just don't see it ever happening
Okay.
because because even like the Muslim countries, they're becoming more liberal. So
Yes. Which Muslim country are you thinking of?
the UAE, I'm pretty sure the Central Asian ones are quite secular.
But you
Um,
see, the the American empire is exporting its culture globally. So everybody takes their cue from America. And if America is gay and transgender, that's what everybody's thinking they're going to be. If Americans do it and they're the most powerful people in the world, they're going to follow suit. They're going to ape the West. So as to your question of how it's going to get done, or how I can see it being adopted, it would be through exposure on in the media, because somebody, some high caliber journalist will have to look at it and say, oh, it's a good idea or it's a horrible idea, let's stamp on it, or whatever. But I'm not even being given the oxygen of publicity. It's like, I know a lot of people hate it, and I know a lot of people have heard of it, but they won't argue about it because it's sort of like, this conspiracy of, well, we won't talk about it in order to deprive her of the oxygen of publicity, and maybe then she'll just fade away and not bother us anymore. And that's how they think. So that's why I have to be so aggressive online, because otherwise they just say, oh, no, thank you, not today, not ever, you know?
mm, that must be frustrating.
Well, I mean, it's just as well I don't mind doing it, right? Because I guess if I did mind and every time I got rejected, I had a nervous breakdown, well, I guess I would have given it up. But the point is, really, they're just saying that they still haven't got anything better. And the thing is, it's like, okay, you don't want it. And then, you leave them alone for a bit, and then they'll start mumbling and muttering and moaning about their government again. And then I'll just go back and, well, fancy a bit of secular Quranism. And then,
Okay,
then
so
they'll, yeah, and then they'll get angry. But they sort of
okay,
know they haven't got anything better.
let me entertain this. So, what will be the structure of your government, and what will be the requirements to fill the position? Would it be like, um, if you don't, if you're not born to a mother of one of our ethnic tribes, then you can't be the president?
I
Like,
don't,
what sort of stuff like that?
it would be, um, oh, you have to be a UK citizen, right? That's the least you have to be.
But citizenship is civic. Would you not want something like, because Somalia recently introduced that if you can't be president unless you have a Somali mother.
Um,
So, like, would you introduce something like that?
no, no. I
And
mean, just because we've already had an Indian, we've already had an Indian prime minister, right?
so, like, I'm just
Well,
asking because
I'm
I
not
was
going to
watching.
be racist.
No, no, because I was watching something and there was a, you know how in the Naturalization Act of like 1790, it said it was for free white persons, but they never defined what that was. So it was quite arbitrary, and it's like they had like Armenians and Assyrians from the Turkish Ottoman Empire being granted citizenship on the grounds of them being white. They had a Japanese person who they counted as culturally white. So it's just ambiguous. So like I'm saying, what sort of checks and balances will you have just to help with these sort of things? Because I feel like if you make it civic, then you can, have these like anchor babies, and they literally don't even like the country. They're just born there or ever, or obtain citizenship, and then you can. That's like grounds for treason because these people don't even like your country. So, like, how will you prevent stuff like that happening?
Well, the point is that the laws that I have in mind will make everyone behave, right? It's got capital punishment, it's got corporal punishment, it's going to shame sluts, it's going to treat unmarried parents as sex offenders. So people are not going to, be thinking it's a, cakewalk, right? But I mean, obviously, I can't be racially discriminating against anyone. I mean, I wasn't born in this country either. But I'm saying, um, whatever the rules of, um, I mean, okay, the English themselves have changed it, right? I mentioned Rishi Sunak, and the thing was, you may remember Benjamin Disraeli, who was this Jew, and he had to convert to Anglicanism in order to become prime minister. You know that, don't you?
I've actually never heard of that. When was this?
Benjamin Disraeli.
No,
He
but
was a Victorian prime minister, and Queen Victoria liked him, and she couldn't stand Gladstone. He was a conservative, and he wrote a book called North and South, but he was a Jew.
no, I've never heard of it.
Okay, well, now you have. He's quite well known, and he was the first Earl of Beaconsfield, and was born in 1804, and he died in 1881.
No, I've never heard of him.
And he's also a writer, and he twice served as prime minister. He played a central role in the creation of the modern Conservative Party, defining its policies and its broad outreach. Because he wrote a book called North and South, and he was talking about one nation. Disraeli is remembered for his influential voice in world affairs, his political battles with the Liberal leader William Ewart Gladstone, and his one nation conservatism or Tory democracy. He made the Conservatives the party most identified with the British Empire and military action to expand it, both of which were popular among British voters. He's the only British Prime Minister to have been born into a Jewish family.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I've never heard of him.
Well, maybe your a knowledge of history. Young people at school don't really learn their history properly. Disraeli was born in Bloomsbury, at that time a part of Middlesex. I didn't know that.
I mean,
Because Bloomsbury.
we learn.
Hmm?
I mean, I think we learned quite a lot in primary, but then secondary, it was more about just like World War Two. You know?
Yeah, they never go back further than
Yeah,
that because you're supposed to. It's on
yeah.
purpose. Really, you should be learning the history of this country from you know the ancient Britons.
I mean, that's what primary school is about. Like they'll tell you from the start, but then once you get secondary, it's just World War Two. That's it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of him, but I mean, it looks like people are always constantly battling to avoid secessionism and stuff like that. So how will you try and? Because I really do like the federal model, or like even England's kind of like a federal because each constituency can kind of
It's a
do what they want.
unitary state. It's a unitary state.
Yeah, and like each constituency can do different things and stuff like that. So
Well, I mean, there's obviously some tension between north and south. With people in the provinces complaining that all the money goes to London and none of it goes to them, and whatever. So,
but I think the
um,
best thing is the eagerness or like the willingness to actually want to solve the problem, but in the best, like in good faith, because like everyone will say like, oh yeah, when I grew up this was such a great country, like everyone says that. So I think people generally actually love being here, so they're gonna want to actually solve it. Sometimes I hear you give off a tone where it's like these people don't even care, but I don't think it's that.
well, yeah. I mean, the point is to bring about better government and a sense of pride in the country. And to this end, you need to kind of rearrange the furniture in people's minds. And of course, people are going to reject. A lot of people are, I don't like the sound of it, blah, blah, blah. But it's really about winning arguments, right? So I'm saying, well, this country, it's supposed to believe in God. Does it believe in God or not? Does it? Or it's just full of fakes, right?
Mm. So you're just holding them
So,
accountable by their own standard.
well, you can only hold people accountable if you say, look, you've made these promises to us, and we want them in writing, and we want to know what they are, and that's the whole point of a contract, right? A written contract. You agree to buy all this stuff from me on such and such a day, and you will pay me on delivery, but whatever it is. And then if I don't do it, you can say, "Hey, Claire, you said you were going to deliver it yesterday. Where the hell are my goods that I ordered?" And blah blah blah.
Hmm.
Right? That's a whole. So that's why divine revelation is so important, because if you believe in the story, it's like it's God saying, "Well, you are my creatures. I created you. You have eternal life, and you have the option of going to heaven and hell, depending on how well you do, showing that you obey me." Right? And most people went with that. They said that's a great idea to make people do stuff. And these rules seem fair enough. No murder, no theft, no sexual immorality, blah blah blah. But still, they couldn't quite get it right, could they? Because they kept having fighting wars with each other.
Yeah, I think um, there's like a bit of an issue in the way you're viewing history because the entire world was like quite backwards up until recently in quite a lot of things. So it's like you're conflating. Oh, it's probably their religion's fault that they had these sort of backwards thoughts and stuff. Because like even in America, like less than 100 years ago, they had like 5-year-old girls working in factories and like child marriage and stuff like that. So I just think it was a different time. Like the whole world was pretty messed up. Like even the Bolshevik Revolution, like most of Russian population were basically enslaved by the Romanovs. So I just think that was the mindset of the
Hmm.
whole world. I don't know why that's the way the world was. So I just think when you look at history, like wow, I can't believe all this like crazy stuff was going on. I just think the people were just different. Like if we met people from like 100 years ago, I think it'll be a real shock to a lot of people how just much different they were. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's why I'm looking forward. Like I think we just got to like evolve. So like, what sort of liberal concepts are you gonna keep? Like, because I know you like abortion,
I don't like
and
abortion,
it's
but I'm not going to
it's just
ban
hard.
it.
It's hard to sell morality and God as a package, and then include stuff like abortion and polygamy, all these things.
Um, I'm not encouraging people to be polygamous. I'm just saying you should apply for a marriage license before you have children, right? Isn't that fair enough?
But why not make polygamy illegal?
Because the Quran allows it, and sometimes it's
But we're not
useful.
we're not Muslim, so
Yeah, most Muslims don't have more than one
yeah. But it
wife.
doesn't matter.
They barely afford the one that they have.
If like a large chunk of the population aren't going to be able to get married because the higher status males are taking more women, then that's going to lead to an imbalance in society. And these men are not going to be, they're not going to have any motivation to do stuff, or they might kick out because they know they can't even get married.
Yeah.
So
So,
you can't
okay.
have
So
you
how I would
you can't have polygamy. It's not good.
no. This is how I would do it. When you apply for a marriage license, you're actually applying to the government for permission to get married, right? Do you see it as that?
No.
Okay, maybe you haven't done it yet, but that's what you have to do.
So I mean, I don't actually know the process, but I just see it as like you go to the church. That's what you
You have to go to the
no.
registry.
You go to the church. You have your ceremony. That's where you get married, and then you go to. I think you have to go to like a registry or whatever, and then you have to
Hmm.
legally, and the government will confirm the marriage. But like, it's not like a ceremony, is it? It's just like, oh, we can legally see you two are now together. That's it. It's not like a certificate to like grant you permission to do anything. It's just like, okay, now you're legally together, and now you have different rules. You're like in a different category now in society, so there's different rules now apply to you because you're now one legally. But I never see it as like, oh, now we're giving you permission to do something because you get married in the church.
Well, if you even if you apply for permission, it's called the publishing of the banns, right? Because in the church and even in the registry office, you publish a ban. So you announce to people like so and so are gonna
Publish a what?
the planning to. It's something called
Publish a
bans.
ban.
So you publish it. You
B A what? Can you spell it?
BANNS.
BANNS.
Yeah, banns of marriage. The banns of marriage, commonly known as a bans or bans, from a Middle English word meaning proclamation, rooted
You
in
know what's funny? Yeah.
um,
Like I did law, yeah, and obviously I did quite well in it. I got a star, but they never like we never learned about marriage or you know or like setting up these groups that actually influence like lobbyist groups and stuff like that. We never really learned about stuff like that or like marriage laws or anything like that. It was just kind of like useless stuff. So I think it's all done like that on purpose, but go and continue because like, I've never heard of this stuff, and I never really viewed it as, oh, now the government's giving you a license or permission to. Anyway, keep going.
yeah. So basically, you publish the bans of marriage, which is basically to put everybody, people in the community on notice that this couple are planning to get married, so that some people can object to it, right? You give them a chance to object to it if there is a good reason, like so and so is already married, or their brother and sister, or whatever. So let me continue reading it. It is it is commonly associated with the Catholic Church, the Church of Sweden, the Church of England, and with other Christian denominations whose traditions are similar. So it's basically a public announcement in a Christian parish church or in the town council of an impending marriage between two specified people. The purpose of bans is to enable anyone to raise any canonical or civil legal impediments to the marriage so as to prevent invalid marriages. Impediments vary between legal jurisdictions, but would normally include pre-existing marriage that has been neither dissolved nor
Mm,
annulled, a vow of celibacy, lack of consent, or the couple being related within a prohibited degree of kinship. So now you know.
okay. Yeah, I mean but that, yeah, and that's what happens when the church runs a society. You actually get people holding each other accountable, and I mean that will never work today because who's gonna turn up? They'll be like, I don't care, or I don't even know who my neighbor is or whatever. So you have to get that community back.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have communities if you don't have families. You won't have families if you don't support marriage. It's all linked. So what you want is a
But I,
community made of local families, and most people are just sort of what itinerant workers who are single, basically, right?
oh no, I think like most people want to get married, but obviously the economy is not doing well, and our generation is just a bit difficult because when you actually start deep in how serious marriage is, right? You can't just pick anyone as your spouse, and then that's when people start to regret all the fornication and stuff. But so it's difficult, but I think in terms of the motive, like most people, I'd say over like 90% of people want to get married because it's natural, isn't it? Like
Hmm.
you want to be with someone, or whatever. But there's a lot of factors that I've mentioned. Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
got
the
to try and deal
government
with
doesn't
that.
support it. That's a problem. The government doesn't even want us to marry. It's always saying, "Oh, you could be gay, you could be transgender. How about trying that?"
Well, how would they support it in
Well,
like a?
they say, right, we have government marriage bureaus. We're gonna, you know,
Oh wait,
um,
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm pretty sure that I've heard you say that you'd have a division dedicated to encouraging women of childbearing age to bear children.
yes, to there would be a government marriage bureau with the task of introducing men of fighting age to women of childbearing age, and you know, encouraging them to marry.
So you, so what would you allow arranged marriages, stuff like that?
Well, the government is sort of facilitating, people in meeting, right? I mean, it could be as a sort of website, which is dating, but run by a government, or it could, be. I mean, yeah, you could do it in an official way, but people might be put off. Like, here's a lecture on marriage and the blah blah blah, and people might. But after that, we can have a nice dance. After the lecture, and there's a bar. I don't know.
Yeah. Would you I was gonna hold on. Let me just try to remember what I was gonna say.
I think it would be quite fun trying to work it out.
Yeah, it's lost me. I can't remember, but it was gonna be about your system. But anyway,
Well, you like the sound of it, clearly.
well, like I said, I agree with quite a lot of it because um, yeah, I mean, I don't believe in political parties, so and like most of the principles, I believe in it, but I just think you gotta be a bit more liberal. I mean, not to your degree in terms of abortion and stuff like that, and like polygamy, but I
Um,
mean, I don't actually know what your positions are on because it seems like you're quite more liberal than I am. So
well, I'm not going to ban. Okay, I mean, saying that I'm going to ban abortion is I think going to be very alarming and unnecessary because it's already like, what, you're going to lash unmarried parents 100 times per illegitimate birth. I mean, they're already freaking out on that, so I don't think I need to push them any further, right? So if they ask about abortion, I'm saying I'm not going to ban it. And then they'll probably be asking, up to what point will will you allow abortion, right? That would be the next question, and I haven't thought it through. So I would tend to support the status quo. I mean, do we have abortion? I don't know what the rules of abortion are now. Anyway,
I think it's up to birth in America or something.
yeah, it's partial
Yeah,
birth
like there
abortion.
was a new law that got signed recently. I think it was in America that literally a baby can literally be born and they'll still do it. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so the rules in England, Scotland, and Wales is this: abortion is regulated by the Abortion Act 1967, allowing legal termination up to 23 weeks and 6 days of pregnancy. Beyond this limit, abortions are permitted only if there is a serious risk to the pregnant person's life or evidence of severe fetal abnormalities. So that's still the rule. So recent decriminalisation. In June 2025, MPs voted to decriminalise abortion for women in England and Wales, removing the threat of prosecution for women who end their own pregnancies outside the strict legal criteria, though the underlying access laws remain unchanged. Abortion is free on the NHS, with over 98% of treatments funded
That's
publicly.
ridiculous. State
Yeah.
sponsoring that.
So, the matriarchy is crazy, and yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? It's outrageous, really. So I don't know why men don't rise up and question it. I mean, they won't even campaign for the abolition of no fault divorce. So I don't know what's
No,
wrong with
no.
men. Like,
Well, when we didn't know that was a thing, like I learned that through you. And this we don't understand. Like we're never told like any of these things. Like, oh yeah, this is actually what a marriage contract is. This is actually what's going to happen once you two are legally together. This is blah blah blah. Like we don't know this stuff, so I never knew that. That's crazy to me. So that's like decentivizing marriage, isn't it? Because it's like she can literally just wake up, you know, one day and be like, yeah, that's it, I'm done. It's like, but go on.
yeah, and well, I'm saying they don't seem to want us to marry or have children, and they keep wanting to import immigrants. So, what does that tell you? And why don't people care? It's sort of, imagine your parents saying, "Look, GBCA, you shouldn't have children. We don't want you to have children." I mean, you'd feel a bit hurt, wouldn't you? We don't want grandchildren from you.
Um,
You'd be really offended, wouldn't
yeah,
you?
that would be painful. But I was gonna say, would you do that? Would you like not allow certain people to like breed? Would you say, okay, if you're like a felon, if you're, you know, a drug addict, you know, you you
Yeah, yeah,
you won't be
yeah,
allowed to
yeah,
breed?
exactly. So when yeah, so you apply. I'm so glad we mentioned the ban. So you apply to your local registry office. You want to get married, and then there will be a lot of background checks. You could actually. We'd like a DNA test in case you're both related, because most people don't know who they come from anyway, right? Lots of people have never met their fathers, right? So you can do a whole bunch of DNA tests and background investigations, which you're in a position to do if you're the government,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, you can really, really regulate it. and get everybody's DNA.
So what would be grounds?
The Americans used to require people to get a blood test before they could marry. That was, I think, in the 20s or something, the 1920s.
Mm, so like, what would be the requirements for you to be like marriageable? Because because
Well,
surely
y-
like in that sort of scenario, the women who work as your prostitutes, they'd be denied the ability to become mothers, or is it only for men?
sorry,
I
can you
said
say that again?
surely in that regard, like basically, I'm asking, what would be the requirements for you to like breach in order for you not to have the privilege of being able to breed, right? So I'm saying like, is it because they're a felon? Is it like what is the requirements? Because if you do start doing stuff like that, I know in your system you want concubines and like prostitutes, right? So I'm saying what so like let's say the prostitute, what if she, you know, realizes, what she was doing was wrong and now she's like 35 and she wants to have a kid because that's just how women are. Would you be like, oh sorry, we're not going to allow that because you are literally a prostitute? Or would she get some grace?
Well,
Like,
well, it's not up to me. I mean, if she manages to find somebody who wants to marry her, and she's not, within the forbidden degrees of consanguinity, and she's not already married, and the person she wants to marry is not already married, then there's no reason why it can't go ahead. I'm not going to be, oh, prostitute ex prostitutes can't marry. No, I'm not going to be mean like that.
so like a drug addict wouldn't be allowed but a prostitute would be allowed?
Yeah, yeah, drug addicts, or people with mental health issues. No, no. If you've got a history of insanity in your family and you're clearly, a bit highly
But would you not
strung,
say that
then
like a prostitute has some mental issues?
that's an interesting question in the
Because
sense
it's
that
true, isn't it? Like you
um,
have to have something wrong with you to engage in that. Because
well, I mean, some women do it for the money, right?
yeah, but still.
Okay, you might not approve, but I mean, we have to define mental health
Mm.
issues, right? Then we need to so and having mental health issues doesn't mean you're feeling a bit depressed, because you know it might not be right to be not happy when something terrible has happened to you. So I'm not going to stop people, women in their 40s getting married if she's found somebody prepared to marry her. Or why would I? But I would encourage, men of fighting age and women of childbearing age to marry it. And this would actually be the what the marriage bureau is concentrating on.
Do you think that part of the issue is that there's now a concept of like marrying for love when before it wasn't really like that? Do you think that's
Well, I think there was always the idea of, I mean, romantic love is has been going around for a few centuries now, hasn't
no? Of
it?
course, that was always like there've always been people who fell in love, but it's like socially, people would be more than fine with like their parents just finding them a suitable mate.
Arranged
Well,
marriages.
not fully arranged, but like it could be like, well, here's a few candidates. You can pick one. We're not saying we've like arranged one for you. You're gonna pick, but it's kind of like pre-arranged. Like they've given you some options. You pick the one we've given you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, parents can do it in an
Yeah.
informal
Like,
way,
do you think?
and have some nice young man come to,
Yeah. Do you think they need to bring that back?
dinner or something. Yeah, yeah. It's just that there's no family structure to even arrange such a thing, right? If if you're all divorced, you won't be able to to even think of doing it. So um, yeah, so we have to use new and different ways to encourage a sort of thing until we bring back the sort of structure. But the idea of the marriage bureau and remedial marriageability classes is obviously it sends a message out like, yeah, we want you to get married, and if you don't think if there's something wrong with you, we're really happy to help you discuss the issues and how you might improve,
But
right?
like in this like marriage bureau thing you're gonna have, like what's gonna be the standard that the marriage bureau appeals to? Because you ask different people, they're gonna tell you different ways of handling different situations.
Well, the
Like
best
there
you
needs
can
to be a
do
national
is
sort of like, standard, like this is how we expect our men to treat our ladies. This is how we expect our women to behave.
well, yes. Um, so So, I mean, obviously, you'd have to say things like, it's for keeps. Don't think that you're just gonna, pump and dump each other if you don't like it. It's
It's till
serious.
death
If
do
you
us
have
part.
children. Well, to be fair, it's till divorce do us part because there is the
But you're not
option
meant
of
to
divorce.
assume that you're not even meant to think of that. You're not even meant to think, oh yeah, well if I,
No,
you
no,
know,
no, no. Of
yeah,
course not. So you can. Um, um, okay. I mean, it's in the Book
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
Common
yeah. I
Prayer,
know.
right? Yeah, and it was like, well, King Henry, you obviously had a problem with the Pope not agreeing to give you an annulment, and that's why you became your own Pope, so you could divorce, you know, your first wife. So I know it's going to be a bit awkward discussing this, but yes, it's disapproved of, right? And there will be a register of divorces
Mm.
because there will be a marriage contract that you have to agree to before you're allowed to get married, and your marriage contract will be put on the register so that if there's any problem, you'll have to say, well, he didn't do this or she didn't do that, and it's breaking the marriage contract, and I'm not happy, and blah blah blah,
Mhm.
right? And then of course there would be marital counseling to keep the couple together, and if it all fails, there would be a kind of apportionment of blame. So if the couple were wise, they would say, well, I guess I'm half to blame because I didn't marry
Yeah.
the right person. So let the fault be apportioned at 50-50. Okay, and this would be the sensible one. But if you're really at daggers drawn with your ex-spouse, you're going to be saying, no, it was his fault, no, it was her fault, it's 70-30, it's 80-20, it's
Mm. So
whatever.
would you allow prenups or would you not allow prenups?
No
What?
prenups. No, because there's already no fault
So
divorce. So obviously, if divorce, okay, if marriage is a contract, then divorce is breach of the marriage contract. So, you know, why do you need a
because
prenup?
so you can partition, like for example, obviously if you divorce and you have children, then you're gonna have to deal with that. So obviously like the woman's probably gonna look after the kids. So you're gonna have to like provide for her, like because that's your kids as well. So it's linked, isn't it? You're gonna have to divide up the responsibilities of the children. And normally women get you
Well,
know more custodial time and they get more money and stuff like that. So
you might like the Muslim way of doing things because apparently there's a rule of thumb whereby
I don't like the
if
Muslim
if
way of doing it.
if a Muslim, do you know what do you know
Yes,
what I'm going to
they
say?
have like inheritance laws. I know we're not talking about inheritance, but they've got like inheritance laws where it's like the man automatically gets more than the woman, right? But what if I have a son that I don't like? He's a brat. Like, why would I reward him for that?
Okay, I don't. I don't pretend to be that familiar with the
Okay, you can
inheritance
look up, but
laws,
go on.
but what I want to talk about is the how there is this rule of thumb that operate within Muslim divorce. So if you get divorced and your kids are under 7, they go to their mother until they're 7, and they go to their father,
But that's such,
right? And this
but
is
that's so stupid though. It's like, uh, um,
what's so
because
stupid? What's so stupid
what
about
if
it?
like the kids want to stay with their mom?
Well, yeah, they get to stay with
No,
their mum until they're 7, and then
but
they
what
go
if
to their
it's
dad.
they're old, they're 7 and they're like, no, I prefer staying with my mom, because you
Well,
do realize that like
the
in these
idea.
situations there's always a favorite parent, and like they're more, that is just so dumb. And
Well, so you're going to let the
no,
kids
I'm asking
decide their own
you,
time?
why won't you have a prenup? Because my whole basis for the prenup is that if there's a divorce, me first of all, me personally as a Christian, I'm not going to just forsake the woman. Like, the reason I want a prenup is so that the state's not getting involved. So it's not like the state's going to force.
The state
No, no.
enforces
What I
all
mean
these
by get involved
rules.
is like, for example, in my prenup, yeah, the reason for my prenup will be, I'll be like, look, in the event, God forbid, but in the event that we do get divorced, I don't want the state, like, and us having to go to all these, like, to the courthouse and like, go through this long process, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, you can see him on these days and blah blah blah. I'll just, myself as a Christian, like, I'm not gonna just forsake our kids and whatnot. So I'll just look after it. Like, I'll give you money for it, blah blah blah. But we don't have to go through this like long process and like, So that's why I would definitely have a prenup, because it's like, you know,
I don't think the prenup will have
no, no,
visitation
no.
rights. The prenup
Yes,
is
I know,
about
but
property.
it's like, I don't want the state to be like, oh yeah, look, because she's your wife, she's getting 50% of this, when I can just be like, look, I'll give you this, out of my own heart.
I don't think you under, I don't think you really understand how it works.
I mean, I definitely know what it is, but that's why I'd have it, because I'm not trying to have the state partitioning my money and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a divorce, fault would have to be apportioned, and whatever you pay her will have to depend on
But
who is at fault.
but
That used to be how it was done in the
but can you
olden
explain
days.
why you won't allow prenup? I think that's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous because it's not even enforceable most of the time. The family court, when it's in a mood, they might enforce it. It doesn't even work even now. It doesn't work in
We're
this
getting a
country.
prenup.
No, it doesn't work. I mean, the rich people do it, but it doesn't even work for them. I mean, just look it up if you don't believe
What
me.
do you mean by it doesn't work though?
It won't give effect to the wishes of the person making the
Why
prenup
not?
because the courts won't enforce it. They will always kind of make it disadvantageous to the man.
Okay. Um,
But the clearest way is you marry, there's a marriage contract, and if you get divorced, it's because one of you didn't keep to the contract, and then it becomes simpler, right? Because a prenup actually assumes the failure of the marriage, which is not very nice,
yeah,
right?
but that's what I'm saying. It's like, in the event of the failure of a marriage, I want the process to be as smooth as possible, which is, that's
Well,
why we should sign this prenup. And I just don't see what's wrong with that.
okay. So I mean, if your wife, you're going to get your wife to sign it, fine, and then there will be problems. Like, is it going to be enforced? Enforcement is
No,
always a
it's
problem.
obviously, I'm not signing it hoping that we're ever going to be in that situation. It's like insurance. So like, obviously, God willing, we're never even going to have this discussion. But it's just like, just in case. I mean, I don't see the point of the state getting involved, and like they'll base on some like arbitrary measure. Like,
Yeah, you still don't understand that contracts are enforced by the
Yeah, I know.
state. It's not like they can just sort of opt out and, it needs to be enforced by someone.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay, so we don't know what the terms of your prenup or whatever, but basically it's a contract, and the reason why the the government actually enforces contracts is because it's
Like,
kind of sacred,
can you
right?
give like a
Because
hypothetical situation, like a hypothetical prenup, and then why the government won't enforce that in England?
I can only tell you that the family courts are not known for enforcing prenups in this country, right? I'm just telling you that, and if you don't believe me, look it up, right? They just don't
But
enforce
why?
it, right? Even if spend a lot, they just don't like people trying to get around their laws. It's true.
So
Well, look it
I'm
up
not.
if
I'm
you
not. I'm
don't
not saying
believe
I don't
me.
believe you. I just want.
So
Like,
that
I
was
just want to know because it doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't they enforce it if you have a contract there?
because you're trying to get round the laws of the land, and it looks suspicious. And anyway, they're trying to make things hard for you know, the man, right? To make it not worth its while, to make marriage unattractive, a
Hmm.
bad bargain. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but that's what they do.
So no prenups. That's interesting. So, but why wouldn't you just in your republic just make them enforce it? Like, are you against the idea of a prenup?
No, because you don't need to, because if there's already a contract that you all agree to, there's no need to have a prenup. The marriage contract itself
So you're
is the
saying that
thing.
you have to sign like a terms and agreements contract.
Yeah, and then you'll be allowed to get
So what will
married,
be on these
right?
terms and agreements, like the conjugal terms?
I don't know, whatever you want
What
to
do you
make
mean?
it. You can have a pro
But
forma.
then, what if someone tricks like a woman into like bad terms? Are you not going to regulate that? So like, what would be like a standard marriage contract? Like, here's the conjugal agreements. Here's the, I don't know. Maybe you said she can have a pet. Like, what are you actually talking about in terms of like a contract?
Well, you can look up, the ones already in existence. I mean, it's usually, I get a new car every year, every 3 years or whatever,
What? That's what you're talking about.
and yeah, I'm talking about rich people's
How can you
contracts,
get?
right?
How can you file for divorce because they didn't buy your car every 3 years? Like, that's ridiculous.
Maybe,
So that's not a
maybe,
real marriage, though, is it?
okay,
That's just like,
it doesn't matter, or the man can say, well, I don't even want to give you a reason, but here's a nice lump sum,
so that's
go
just like
away.
renting a wife.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can be, it, it can be anything you make it,
What?
right?
So you don't have like an objective, like sort of standard, like what you expect.
There is a pro forma. I haven't worked it out. I mean, usually it's basically, it's over if it's adultery, it's over if there's,
Desertion.
domestic abuse, it's over if there's desertion, whatever the standard, reasons for a divorce, right?
Hmm.
So, well, anyway, I'm not an expert on divorce law, and the law has changed. So you don't even have to show fault. You just say, I've had enough. And this is what I'm saying should not be the case. It's like, well, okay, you've had enough. Why? Did he or she do something
Hmm.
terrible? And what about the children and blah blah? And basically, it is about shaming the party. So the Muslim rule is that if the kids are under 7, they go to the mother. After 7, they go to the father, and,
That
and,
is
and
just
then
retarded.
it would be, oh my god, that would be so terrible. I don't want my kids coming back to me when they're 7. Who's going to look after them? Blah blah blah. Let's not get
That's
a
just so
divorce,
stupid. It's like,
right?
you know, like, could you?
What's so stupid
Could you
about
imagine if,
that? It would discourage people. So what's so
or
stupid
could
about
you imagine
that?
if you were seven in that situation? I'm sure you know people who, like your friends who have like divorce, who are in divorce families and stuff like that. Um, that's not something they'd want, like being forced to go live with the other parent.
Look, the idea is to discourage
Yeah, but
divorce. So you make the rules as awkward as possible, and make people think, well, what am I going to do, with the children when I'm just a
no,
single
I was
man?
watching,
You
I was
know?
watching something about marriage laws in America, and it was like for like the majority of American history, in like pretty much every state, you couldn't get married for, you couldn't get a divorce for any reason. And once they started allowing people to get divorced, it's like the divorce rates just skyrocketed. Not because like
Sure.
I think it was always like that, but people just had to just firm it. So I think these things have always kind of been the case, but people were just getting forced to just accept it, like forced to get married. But once they like allowed people to actually get divorced, the divorce rate is just skyrocketed because yeah, I think that's just the nature of it, isn't it? It's difficult. Like marriage is a difficult thing.
Well, I have been saying that maybe religions were created to get people to marry each other and then stick with their choice and not get divorced, because otherwise human instincts would be, yeah, well, I'll just keep pumping and dumping.
Mhm. I think it's normal, isn't it? Like I mean, like I said, once they allow divorce, it just starts skyrocketing.
Yeah, yeah, which is why look, if you look at Judaism, you know that it's the strictest, right? It's the strictest. You can't have, all the sexual offences. There's so many of them, and all the fussy rules about marriage. Yeah, because they take it seriously.
Well,
Because it's all, ultimately, it is about being able to pass down not just your genes, but the culture of, your society. How can you pass anything down if it's only one parent?
hmm
It'll just be sex and shopping and sport, right? That will be the only culture that they're going to keep, you know, that they'll absorb.
but I think the like financial situation is worse, is more important than like the cultural one because, like I said, I think people would get married if they could afford it. Like if they could actually afford a house and stuff. Maybe not. Maybe if everyone could afford a house, people just fornicate more easily. Maybe that is true, but I do think that's like a big problem.
Well, there's now a return to the multi generational household because people can't afford to move out now, right? And maybe that will have the effect
Like,
of bonding families.
yeah, I do think that like for example, like if you grow up with sisters, then you're gonna be able to like treat a woman better. So I think, and like you have better social skills because you're gonna have to tolerate maybe like if you find them annoying or whatever. So I think it will give you better social skills as well if you have a larger family.
Yes. Yeah, the sibling rivalry, it'll stop you from being a bore, you know, just get monopolizing the attention of your, you know, unmarried mother as a single, as the only child. Yeah, yeah. All these factors will change. So I mean, all the government has to do is say we support marriage, but because they don't, they
Mhm.
can't do it, right? They just want us to, have more sex, have more drugs, and kill ourselves.
I mean, I think I've heard, not heard. I think I saw. I think it was Rupert Lowe talk about how he wants to incentivize like home buying for younger people or something.
You would have to ban usury to drive property prices right
You
down
have to
again.
first come up with a system for that because the creation of the Bank of England is what bankrolled the British Empire. So, you know, Britain did benefit a lot from this usurous system. You know, America benefits the fact that it's got the global reserve currency and they can just print it. So I mean, like they don't like. Why would they give it up?
Oh, they might have to when people refuse to lend them any more money, right? Because America's been behaving like a rogue nation, and all the other countries are trying to make their own arrangements. And that's why America is starting World War Three.
I don't think they're starting World War Three though.
You don't? Well, I think it's being very aggressive, and it sort of knows its number is up. And, after 2030, China will be so far ahead of them that they won't be able to catch
Is that
up.
what you think?
Well, that's a story I get from geopolitical commentators.
But heading,
And that's why they keep predicting civil war by 2030 to get us ready for, the civil unrest. So we'll just, suck it up.
yeah, I don't think there'll be that type of civil war because, like, I mean, you're telling me that this malpractice from the government has been going on for a while, right? And we're just gonna skip like putting pressure on the government, and we're just gonna go straight into this like dying for what, you know? I really don't think people can even be bothered to like have a civil war, you know?
Yeah, because they're aging and shrinking, right? So the men are fighting age. Well, there are very few of them. The average age of this country is 40 and rising.
Oh, really? That's mad,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, that's why they keep, importing young men of fighting age to come and do the work that there's not enough, men to do. So, it ultimately is demographics. And our government either doesn't know, doesn't understand, or refuses to understand, or just doesn't care, right? I mean, that's the only conclusion we can reach. And maybe nobody's interested because actually men don't want to marry anyway. They're just happy with occasional sexual encounters, and they're not that bothered,
I
right?
mean, like, why? How are you gonna convince someone who doesn't believe in the divine institution of marriage to get married in this climate? Like, even if you mean like why, you know?
Well, okay, I I often I constantly challenge people, right? And it seems that even these white nationalists who say, "Oh dear, our race, our civilization," they're mostly bachelors, and they're confirmed bachelors, and they don't want to get married, and that's why they prefer to whinge about the Jews and the Muslims and the non-whites instead of saying, well, maybe uncontrolled mass immigration is something to do with the labor shortage, and our government, having invited so many of them into our country, will now be thinking, well, a few more from this country and that country won't hurt because there's so many of them here already, right? So that's
It
what's
can't be about
happening.
the labor shortage because they're not like high skilled.
Yeah, we need a lot of people still to do unskilled jobs like Deliveroo and that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
thing, and to harvest crops and whatever, and work at McDonald's. In fact, today I was hearing that even in America they couldn't get people to work in McDonald's because they were always getting the order wrong, and they would be different a different staff and whatever. So it's not
I
working.
mean,
It's not working,
jobs
and
like that,
people.
I agree. Like, I went into GDK and it was just all Indians, but like, I don't have an issue with that because I mean, we know that like no one British wants to do that. So I mean, I mean, yeah, those kind of roles perfect, but I don't think that's what's happening because people won't complain otherwise. I mean, who's complaining that you got people, you know, working behind the till? Like, no one would complain about that because they, because you're
Complain
set.
about what? They're all complaining about immigration, aren't they? Isn't that what Restore and Reform are about?
Yeah. What do you disagree with them?
No, I don't. I can understand, but I'm just saying. Look, if you're saying it's a problem, and I'm telling you what the solution is, it should be no. It's the Jews. It's the Jews. It's the Jews.
Well,
It's
no.
like
What is
you're having a problem with your birth rate because you won't marry and look after your children.
what is your solution though? Because no, but
Encouraging
yeah, but
marriage.
you're civic nationalist. But what like, but that's also something these people are complaining about because they're saying like, they're putting up mosques and stuff. So like, how are you going to prevent that?
Well, I think you'll have to put up with the civic nationalism for a bit. Okay, just imagine what would happen if all the non-whites disappeared in a puff of
Well,
smoke. If that happened, even Nick Griffin said, well, there'll be a lot of sick and elderly people
yeah,
dying in hospitals and
and
care homes.
also that's just not possible because there's a lot of people who have a spouse who's not white, and you can't really do that to them. It's just not it's not
Yeah,
feasible. Like
exactly. And
no one, and even someone like Rupert Lowe, he said even he wants to continue high skilled immigration. Like, he doesn't have an issue with that. So there's no real ethno nationalism. It's just that people are tired of.
yeah, but they're stupid, right? I know quite a few of them, and they just can't have a proper
Oh no, they can
debate,
never
right?
justify their position. But I'm saying like,
Yeah, it's like they just want to blame Jews, and then that's the end of the story. And if you don't agree with them, you're not one of them. And I'm saying, look, Japan also has a problem. It has a demographic problem. China has a demographic problem
yeah,
too. But at least China is saying, well, we were wrong about the one-child policy. We want three now. At least they're saying that, you know, not 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 a squeak from our government. They're not even talking about correcting any
mm,
errors.
I think
Do
you're
you?
gone. No,
Sorry,
no,
you carry
no,
on.
you're gone.
I kind of, I'd like to step away for a bit, and if you want to say stuff, feel free. But I'll be away
Um,
for a bit. Do you fancy doing a bit of a monologue?
I don't really have I don't really have anything to say. I mean, if someone asks me a question, then I
Okay.
can respond to a variety of
Yeah.
topics. But
Well, yeah. I mean, there's four people watching now, so if they post something, they
what,
might,
what,
you might have
but it
something to
depends. Like, how
talk
long are
about.
you going
But
for?
about um 5, 7, 10 minutes.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'll hold it down.
Yeah. And what was I saying? I mean, do you feel I've dealt with your questions
Um,
in a way that you understood, or have I not answered your questions properly?
I mean, I don't think I really asked you any like. I mean, I did ask you some questions, but I wasn't really prepared to ask you questions. I was kind of. I originally was just going to respond to what you were saying. So, I mean, I
Hmm.
guess that'll be my fault. I mean, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna prepare, I guess, some questions for you next time then.
Hmm.
Because I remember one time I was gonna do that. Like, I think you had on your Substack like 50 questions for Christians. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to answer all these, but I feel like I should have questions for you.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
yeah. Because normally I just like if someone says something, I can respond to that, but I don't really have
Hmm.
anything like pressing any issues like personally like that. And that's the
Okay.
thing. Like, I never really knew that the UK was in these kind of problems because that's not my environment. So I thought everything was all rosy, until I had to go to like certain parts of the country. Like the first time I went to Birmingham, I was like, what? This is not the England I grew up in. And I wouldn't want to live there. So, I mean,
What did you find? What didn't you like about Birmingham?
um,
Okay, I'm going to leave you to talk about Birmingham, and I'll step away, right? And I hope somebody will ask you questions.
I think I'll respond. Let's see what TTG said. Western Christians are lost in the source, and when you point out that EO used the name, that's an word of equivocation fallacy. So I really can't be able to unpack this. If you're actually active, then I'll unpack it. But I mean, that's just ridiculous if you actually believe that.
Oh, well, he's gone. I hope he told an interesting story about Birmingham and why he thinks it's such a terrible place. I have no particular memory of Birmingham. I didn't actually go into Birmingham, but it was on the outskirts when I did go. So let me remind myself of the title of this stream so that I can leave after ensuring that I did actually address the title of this stream. The suffering caused by not treating God, by not taking God literally, means that, well, if you're not taking God literally, then you're not taking his laws literally, and you're not taking the afterlife literally, and if you don't, then it means you won't act correctly, and you won't be acting on the basis that you believe good will be rewarded and evil punished in this life and the next. And this means that most people, if most people don't believe in God, and I suspect most people don't, that they're easily intimidated and they will they are easily threatened and bribed, and therefore atheism is one of the things that the West is dying of. That there's all these solutions in theory, right? And I am a political theorist, and I'm telling you what could be done. And there's a sense of, oh, but I don't even know anybody who would do this. And frankly, I don't know anybody either. All that I see are basically clueless, beta, broken beta losers. And those with alpha male qualities are basically just pandering to them, and they don't even expect anything to be done. They're just hoping to go to their graves with their Christian identity intact, and that's all they hope. So it's a poverty of low expectations that is a problem. But I'm just a political theorist. I'm just here to explain what has gone wrong. And obviously, it's not my place. It's not my job to, you know, save Western civilization. But I'm just saying this is a problem. You guys with your children, surely you ought to be doing a bit more than beat around the bush and not really address the issue because you think this is a fun way of spending your time and pretending to show that you care when really you can't even articulate the problem, and I have done it for you. And of course I invite pushback, but are people even capable of pushing back and engaging in a discussion about the nature and purpose of religion? So I've been going on about this member of the dissident right who blocked me just because I pointed out the demographics and the nature and purpose of religion. But all you can say is, I don't like Muslims, I don't like Jews, and why can't the Japanese kick out all the Muslims? And it's like, they can't do it for the same reason people here can't kick out the immigrants, because they actually need them. They need them to do all the jobs they don't want to do. So that's a problem. And obviously, there's going to be more immigration the more you refuse to have children and refuse to even contemplate the possibility that you might support marriage in a tangible and effective way. So it's more than just, saying you support marriage. You have to shame sluts. You have to shame fuckers. You have to shame unmarried parents. You have to talk about my A, B, and B plus schools, and all the practical measures that I have proposed to restore the West to good moral order. And even if you don't think it's going to happen in your lifetime, you could at least be brave enough to talk about it. But sadly, for a lot of these members of the dissident right, they are broken beta losers. They do not have offspring. They do not have a girlfriend. And therefore, the thought of doing anything that might work, is alien to them. They're only interested in deriving an income from their position as social media influencer, subscriptions to Substack and Patreon and whatnot. But fundamentally, men are deeply, deeply confused and they don't want to do anything. And just remember Hamlet. Hamlet was basically a man who knew something was very wrong. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark. And he couldn't get himself to do anything. And then when he did it, he just killed all the wrong people. That would be a terrible thing to happen. I don't know if members of the TLC can actually get their act together to even discuss what needs to be discussed. I mean, ideally, I would like to get on Tucker Carlson, but who is to say that he's not also a member of the deep state sent as a distraction? If he's really going to start another party, then he's wasting our time, right? I see he's come back. Hello?
Hello?
Back again.
You alright?
I missed your story about Birmingham, if you did tell it. Did you tell it?
No, I didn't tell it.
Okay.
So you said we need to shame the sluts and the slut fuckers. Well, so like, what role do you think that women have in all this, or do you not think? Do you think it's only something men have to do?
Well, I mean, the thing is, men kind of like sluts, right? So if you knew that such and such a woman was a slut, you'd probably go and buy her a drink or buy her dinner. Yeah. Okay. And so you need actual women prepared to shame her, right? That's the only way that would work. So you need everybody on board, right? I've been talking for over 2 hours, so I guess I will have a bit of a rest now. But thank you for coming back, and I'm sure we'll speak again before too long. Thanks for coming, GCBA. And yeah, get your questions ready for next time.
Yeah, thank you. Take care as well, and yeah, I'm sure to have some questions for you.
Alrighty.
Is there anything in particular you want to be challenged on?
Oh, anything. But have a look at secularcoronism.blogspot.com because they're quite sort of short and snappy little pieces. So they might generate more questions. And you might want to comment on them anyway.
Do you want to put the link in this description?
Okay, let me.
Go on then. I'll see you later.
Okay, I'm just typing it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm typing it in the thing now. And I will end the stream.